Early this year, I took a trip to Paris on the Eurostar to test it out. The Eurostar was great in terms of access. Firstly, they met you on arrival with the ramps ready to go to get you on the train. There was an excellent space for a wheelchair with a table and sat opposite someone to accompany you. The bonus is the tickets are at a minimum price, but the wheelchair spaces are in a premium area, meaning you get a free meal as you travel, as well as use of the lounges at either end for you and one other. The only drawback was a slight lack of luggage space. We stayed at the Ibis Gare du Nord near the station in Paris. Slightly strange room, but it has what you need. Sort of a wet room, quite small, but fits my shower chair and it looks like it'll work quite well. Toilets at a decent height for my shower chair, maybe a bit low for some people if they want to do transfers, but that's exactly what I like for my needs. But yeah, as I say, it's functional but pretty small. And again, the bedroom is sort of functional but small again, so just about enough room for my bag. A table over here. Bizarrely, the cupboard is blocked off by the table, but yeah, it does the job for a couple of days that we're in Paris. Really close to the station, like a 3 or 4 minute walk, so yeah, that works well from our point of view. Especially wheeling my shower chair across town, it's just not worth it, so we'll get public transport into the city tomorrow. It doesn't seem like it's too far out, but yeah, all looks good. On the first evening, we ate at Chez Casimir, a hidden gem just around the corner from the station that serves traditional French food. I highly recommend it. There is no disabled access inside or into the toilet, however, eating outside in front of the church is very beautiful. The next morning, we got up early and went to the Marché Saint-Quentin. This was a little produce market that was really delightful near to the hotel. We got breakfast there with some croissants and pain au raisin before exploring Paris. With our bellies full, we got on the bus towards the Louvre Museum. The buses in Paris were pretty accessible, with automatic ramps that come down in the middle of the bus. However, they did tend to be very busy, and people weren't very willing to move for the wheelchair. And one bus driver completely ignored us, meaning that we ended up walking for 45 minutes instead. The Louvre Museum was very accessible. It is obviously one of the most touristy locations in Paris, but as we've never been before, it was a must-see. The lift down from the glass pyramid was fascinating, being a spinning lift that goes between a spiral staircase. My one complaint about the museum was that all the disabled toilets were either in the male or the female toilets, meaning that if you have an assistant who is not of the same gender as you, they have to walk into the opposite gender toilet. I also recommend getting your tickets well in advance because they sell out pretty quickly. On the hunt for the Mona Lisa, and it's apparently very pathetic. When we did find the Mona Lisa, it wasn't as pathetic as I'd been led to believe. I think this was in the main part that as a wheelchair user, you can skip right to the front of the queue and be in front of the Mona Lisa without any crowd. However, the part of the museum I enjoyed most was the Islamic art section, as this isn't something that you necessarily see very often. After the museum, we took the long walk that I mentioned earlier in the direction of the Eiffel Tower. We stopped for a French lunch of croque madame, lamb chops and of course garlic snails, which actually turned out to be quite nice. We then decided that as we were in Paris, we had to do something fashionable, so we visited the Yves Saint Laurent Museum. This was where he used to design his clothes. It was actually very fascinating, even though I'm someone that definitely isn't the height of fashion. The access was really good, having a back door and a lift with a nice toilet as well. I actually came away appreciating Yves Saint Laurent's work. It was really interesting to see the spot that he used to design from and some of the images of how he created his works. After viewing the beautiful clothing, we finished the day at the Eiffel Tower. As someone that could be a bit geeky at times, I really loved the lift experience and how mechanical it all felt, so you probably have a bit too much of this in the video. A word of warning though, if you buy a ticket as a wheelchair user, make sure you buy the lift ticket. Do not just click the wheelchair button online. I had to re-buy my tickets as apparently I bought stair tickets for a wheelchair user. Absolute madness. Another thing to note is that as a wheelchair user, you can only go to the second story and not all the way to the top, but there's still excellent views over Paris. Completely unexpectedly, we got to the top, just as the lights came on. This came as a rather surprise to us, although maybe explained why everyone seemed to be expecting something. The next day, we only had half a day, so we went to the Basilica Sacré-Cœur that isn't far from the station. Partly why I wanted to go here was for the funicular railway, as I'm absolutely obsessed with these. Another note is that to get on the buses, it seemed like you need tickets that are only available from the underground stations. So as a wheelchair user, make sure you get them when you arrive at Gare du Nord, as most stations are not accessible. They also worked for this funicular too. The Basilica was very beautiful and has a back entrance for wheelchair users, which felt very random as you end up going through areas that say no visitors. It's well worth a trip, with very beautiful views of Paris as well, and a nice spot to have some lunch. A lot of people also do love padlocks here as well. A quick word of warning that there are some cobbles from the funicular railway up to the Basilica, but they weren't too bumpy and they were manageable. We then lit a candle for my two close friends that had passed away recently, as well as my grandparents, which felt like a fitting way to end the trip. Again, the Eurostar on the way back was very efficient, although strangely it had a lift at the French end to get you on the train. I highly recommend, as a wheelchair user, taking a trip to Paris on the Eurostar. You'll have a fantastic time. That's it for now. Hopefully see you again for another episode of the Tetra Travels.